Right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. We've still got some people coming in. Please, those of you who have questions that pop into your mind during the talk, please put your questions in the Q&A. You're welcome to use the chat to one another, tell us where you're from. We like to know where people are logging in from all around the world. So if you're in Greenland or somewhere exotic, please let us know. Timbuktu is also okay. Right, so questions in Q&A, please. Please don't use the raise hand part of it. We don't have time to sort of sort through the raised hands and go to various people. So please, all your questions into Q&A. We will have a Q&A session at the end with all the questions. If there are a lot of questions and we don't get through them, we will arrange for them to be answered by email. So hopefully you've got lots of questions. I see people popping up from all over the place. So, as I say, welcome to everybody. Nice to have you all attending this Sandparks webinar for this evening. It is with December here as of today. I think we'll all go into holiday mode from today. So for those of you who do watch these webinars, we won't have any more until probably about mid-February, but we will email everybody once we start them all again. So I'm going to disappear until the end of this show, and I'm going to now hand over to Gabby, who's going to do all the introductions for this evening. So Gabby, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on why we visit national parks. My name is Gabby Fenter, and I'm the Manager of Media and Stakeholder Relations at Sandparks. I want to start tonight's webinar by introducing Professor Nelly de Krom. Professor Nelly de Krom is an Associate Professor in the Department of Nature Conservation at the Tshwane University of Technology. She started off as a zoologist with an MSc in zoology and later added a master's degree in sociology, a master's in positive psychology, and a PhD in environmental history to her academic qualifications. Her multidisciplinary research interests involve the influence of nature experiences on people and the role of ecotourism as a means to create awareness for conservation. As a registered counselor and also a national nature culture tourist guide, she focuses on the positive and valuable contribution that nature experiences can have for the well-being of people and eventually for all species on the earth. Nelly's lifelong passion, commitment, and combined interest in nature and human interaction with nature enables her to contribute to studies in understanding and promoting human care for nature. This care doesn't only mean physical care for nature, but includes affective and behavioral components. Beyond thought, people must also feel. Emotions and nature cannot be separated. Nelly is deeply passionate about nature and our national parks and loves to travel and explore the world's natural places. So welcome, Professor de Krom, and now I'm going to hand over to you so that you can share some of your knowledge and passion for nature with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and also to the organizers of this webinar. Thank you for the opportunity to share just a few of the things that I've discovered while visiting some of our parks. And many of the things that I'm going to tell you tonight, you will most probably know and have experienced through our national parks. But just maybe there is something new or something you can relate to that reminds you of an experience and that will make you want to go back again and again and again. I just want to give you some background of why did I do this study. Sandparks, specifically the Tourism Research Department, wanted to know if and how visitors to South Africa's national parks benefit in ways that can actually contribute to people's well-being. We were also interested to find out what are regarded as highlights or experiences in the respective parks. And also, are there any differences in the meaning of experiences in the respective parks? And then finally, what can Sandparks do to enhance experiences that will contribute to general well-being? Substantial research in many parts of the world proved that natural areas provide people with benefits ranging from health and physical well-being to psychological benefits and subjective well-being, or better known as happiness. It is argued that due to these benefits, natural areas are becoming increasingly important. However, it is also known that there is a growing disconnect between people and nature. In addition, the World Health Organization predicted in 2019 depression to be the single biggest cause of ill health in 2020 and beyond. Therefore, there is an increasing recognition of the importance of less tangible or less quantifiable benefits that people derive from visiting nature or protected areas like our national parks. Intangible benefits form part of the ecosystems of national parks, which are the benefits people obtain from ecosystems. Now, the evaluation of these intangible benefits as part of the ecosystem services has been largely overlooked in studies. Now, what is an intangible benefit? When trying to define intangible benefits of visiting a national park, one may start by asking the question, how do you measure a personal experience in a park? Or better yet, how do you price such an experience? Now, these questions illustrate the difficulties faced when trying to put a monetary value on an intangible benefit. An intangible benefit is a more subjective benefit that one cannot actually touch, and therefore it is difficult to measure. Human well-being, visitor satisfaction, the meaningfulness and value of a nature experience, and even lasting positive effects after a visit are all intangible benefits. Now, should the intangible benefits of national parks, like any other business, be, the chances are that visitors, the customers, will lose interest and turn to other natural resources or even other countries where these benefits are still available. And therefore, a management approach should be developed which incorporates intangible benefits as happy visitors or returning visitors. The question arises of what makes a visitor to a national park happy. How lasting is this happiness, and will it ensure return visits? It is therefore important to explore and try to determine how visiting nature or participating in some nature-related activity, such as those offered in our national parks, can positively affect a person to be happy. But what is happiness? Martin Seligman, an American psychologist and known as the father of positive psychology, describes three core elements of happiness. Positive emotions, like the experiencing and savoring pleasures in nature. Engagement, when losing oneself in engaging activities. And meaning, such as when participating in meaningful activities. Now, all of South Africa's national parks provide the potential for the visitor to be able to experience all three of these elements of happiness. The road to a happy, flourishing, meaningful life is paved with virtues. The positive psychologists Park, Peterson, and Seligman summarized more than 200 character strengths in human personalities into 6 virtues. And these are wisdom, courage, transcendence, humanity, justice, and temperance. And we will have a closer look at these a little bit later. Virtues and happiness are closely associated and are bidirectionally related, with virtue leading to happiness and happiness leading to virtue in a virtuous cycle. And virtues are powerful psychological resources that help people to deal with and transcend the limitations inherent in us humans. They are our noble attributes that provide resilience when we face hard times and enable us to thrive and achieve the good life. Virtues are actually essential for happiness because virtues give us the power to have control over ourselves, to seek the things that we know will truly make us happy. And therefore, determining which and if virtues are elicited or enforced from visits to a park can be of value for park management to create opportunities and places where such benefits can be experienced. So the main question to answer is, what are the potential intangible benefits or the side effects, such as improved well-being or personal growth, or improved relationships, new visions, and general happiness that visits to national parks may hold for the individual visitor? Virtues like these mentioned are essential to optimal functioning in intrapersonal and interpersonal domains, and they are one of the factors which determines a person's happiness level. And therefore, determining which and if virtues are elicited or enforced from visits to a park formed an equally important aim of the study. And then finally, does any of these experiences during a visit to nature have meaning for the? So where and how did I get my information? Firstly, the study proposal received ethical clearance and approval by both SANParks and TUT's Faculty of Science Research Ethical Committee. The participants were all adult people visiting or had visited the specific national park and who were prepared to share experiences with me willingly. And during the last part of 2018 and during 2019, I visited the following parks: Agulhas, Grobis Falls, Bontebok, Kambu, Golden Gate, Highlands, Mapungubwe, Marakele, and Mokala, and then COVID restrictions stopped me in my tracks. These parks were visited to familiarize myself with specific places, activities, and features participants may refer to during the data gathering procedures. I mainly used 3 data gathering techniques, which are the interviews. And this, during visits to parks, people were approached at times and places conducive to introducing myself and the study. I then arranged an interview time and place convenient for the participant if it wasn't convenient at that time. And interviews usually became informal conversations. I also asked participants if they have or will take a photograph of what we were discussing or of anything they regard as something meaningful. Or I will show a photograph of a sighting or something related to the discussion. And this visual method proved to generate and encourage even more discussions and sometimes evoke deep emotions and memories. Observation. This technique was mainly used during participation in formal events and activities such as guided walks or guided game drives, hikes, and even self-guided walks and drives, and also during informal activities such as bird viewing or photography from a bird height or a scenic lookout point. And then I've made use of eco-narratives. These are stories told by people of their experiences in parks in the form of written documents of various kinds. And in some cases, participants provided stories in the form of drawings, and these were then explained during follow-up interviews. So what did the people say? The data was analyzed and separated into various scenes, and I'm going to present the findings under the following topics: the initial reasons provided for visiting the specific park, affective and spiritual experiences, those feelings and emotional experience, virtues gained or enforced, unique experiences, values of nature, and then I will summarize in a few final thoughts. So when I ask people why they visit the specific park, they firstly mention the feel-good reasons: to experience quietness, peacefulness, and to relax. A few quotes in this regard are that in Grobis, for example, the total peacefulness in this place, the walking trails and self-drive routes. Then in Mapungubwe, it is special because of its history, location, and the quietness of the place. There's a vast range of flora and fauna. In Kambu, a leisurely drive. Apart from breathtaking scenery, we saw a number of wild animals. It was nice and quiet. A participant in Agulhas summarized these feel-good reasons by saying, At the southernmost tip of Africa, the flora, the scenic beauty, relaxing in very comfortable accommodation with a stunning view, easy access, long and safe walks. These initial reasons are usually those things that we experience physically and that we tell others about, that nice stories we put into words and tell our friends when we're back home. How we become aware of these feel-good features are described through what we see, hear, smell, and touch, in other words, through our senses. The following few slides give specific examples of people describe their feel-good reasons by becoming sensorial aware. In Groblersfontein, people mention, we can see one of the most beautiful night skies in South Africa, the magnificent colors of the rocks during sunsets, the smell and feel of the water spraying down the gorge. From the main waterfall and gorge, they also provided photographs of views of rainbow colors displayed during late afternoons at the waterfall, and rock formations found at the various viewpoints, which they regard as something special to see. Golden Gate National Park provides visitors with a number of sensorial experiences. For example, mountains are fascinating, especially in the late afternoon sunlight. I could actually hear the silence and the golden colors of the brandwag during sunset. In the Bontebok National Park, a visitor said, this tiny little park is not the place to look for the big five, but the place to enjoy the gorgeous Bontebok. We went when the aloes were in full blossom and found the views stunning, and they also mentioned abundant bird life. So the first engagement in an experience involves a form of physical awareness that sort of stresses the body and the mind in some or other way. For example, a walking trail or a steep climb or things to hear and see. And therefore, we are consciously aware of these activities and we can share them with or tell others about them. This means that we start to become mindful of our physical environment. This mindfulness may lead to a more intense experience of the environment, and this is reflected in the affective responses, in other words, emotional and spiritual feelings of. We are not passive recipients of emotional experience. We often seek them out. And trying to put our experiences in the natural environment in words can often evoke emotions. Sometimes the landscape, the trees and animals may evoke not only a physical or sensory awareness, but also deep and personal feelings. And typical examples of such experiences are a participant who shared his personal feelings evoked by the landscape during a sunset drive in Pretoria as follows. Every turn had some surprise or a spectacular view, especially with the sun that started to set on us. I felt a sense of adventure. It was getting dark and the colors in the sky were amazing, and the landscape looked so different, breathtakingly beautiful. I was constantly in awe. A participant from Okala described the experience. The quietness after the sun has set in its multiple shades of red. Then came the night with its soothing sounds, perfect moment to settle and be content. After a walking trail in Kamdebou, a participant said, you walk and admire. On the left-hand side, the abyss appears sometimes too close. Right are steep boulders, striped in various sun's rays. They talk to you from times long ago, exposed to the forces of wind and water for ages on end. Around the next corner, the world is scattered with loose, rough stones. And then you see large patches of brown soil covered with karoo-type shrubs, always changing, fascinating. In addition to these descriptions of experiences, participants often told stories and then used metaphors to relate to an experience or to explain their emotions felt or to give a personal meaning to an experience. For example, in Golden Gate, a quote from a participant after a hike says, these mountains are forever, and in human terms, forever. They are anchored, they are good and right. there is no evil in mountains. I do have great respect for these mountains and their enormous and majestic heights. They are examples of what all should be. The participants' very striking narrative after watching these elephants for a long time during a game drive in Marrakech reads, "Watching these elephants made me realize that their social part definitely fits in with me. I think there is another obvious characteristic, and that is it is a strong animal, emotionally. When a fellow elephant dies, I believe that they do mourn their dead and they support one another. It is this exact characteristic which I experienced this year after losing my best friend. I had to be strong, physically and emotionally, to support his family. Elephants never forget, and I never forget. They are compassionate animals, why I can relate to them." A participant's narrative after an encounter with the rose eagles also illustrates the meaning of such an event to a person. "All of a sudden, this black eagle just appeared out of nowhere. This bird was apparently taking a rest and was now looking at me. The nictitating membrane closed, and then it just spread its wings and disappeared. But it was that second, almost like an eternity, that I looked into the bird's eyes and the bird looked at me. And there was an awareness, a consciousness of we were sharing, and this was very significant." National parks and nature in general are filled with metaphors that we can apply in our daily lives to help improve our life skills, recognize our virtues, or to help manage stressful situations and our general well-being. So what does this all mean and why is it important? And because of the important role that virtues play in our happiness, as explained in the introduction, I paid much attention to explore the respective virtues and associated character strengths that emerge from these and similar responses from participants. This slide gives a brief idea of the 6 virtues and the associated character strengths with each. But due to the vast amount of information gathered in terms of virtues and character strengths, I will only highlight a very few responses. For each virtue, I will highlight 1 or 2 character strengths and the location or activity where this strength was experienced. And the location or activity, or as it may indicate what value or meaning each place has for the visitor. And this is important for management too, in terms of future development options. Where possible, the identified character strength was verified with the participant afterwards. In Maputo, the treetop walk is an important place, amongst others, where character strengths are elicited. Quotes from participants include, "The boardwalk meandering to the river makes me feel like a secret explorer. Never been here before. We happily tick off quite a few new sightings," referring to birds, of course. "Fantastic birding," had a few list of birding or birds, including a few lifers. So to see new bird species, discovering an environment never seen before, new things to be discovered, and an eagerness to learn or see new things are all examples of the character strength of curiosity and love of learning that contribute to the virtue of wisdom and knowledge. The Mapungubwe Hill provides many opportunities where virtues are elicited. Courage here refers to risking it to get close to what we are afraid of. A young man and an older woman posed individually for a photograph on a rock close to a high cliff when we were up there. The young man said, I've done it that while being terrified of heights. And the woman also waved excitedly while sitting on the rock, and also said that she was proud of herself because she did not think that she would be able to face the height up there. Now, this is evident that both overcame their fears and they felt proud of it. They achieved some personal challenge, and the character strength of bravery was clearly elicited. So one of the character strengths of the virtue of humanity is at the Gullis National Park. It was striking how people calling to others, unknown people to them, to spot a bird sighting or something small like a tortoise in the vegetation, and similar seemingly insignificant sightings like a hermit crab in a rock pool. Some quotes attest this. The coastal seabirds in large flock, very special. The flowers appearing where they are protected. And come have a look at what I found. So both care, because of experiences and sightings like these, make one want to care for nature in general. And sharing these positive experiences with others are signs of kindness. And this means kindness not only to fellow humans, but to all living things. During the heritage walk up to Mapungubwe Hill, individuals of different genders and ages help and encourage each other to keep up to reach the top. Fairness, leadership, and teamwork as character strengths were in the group. One individual in the group excelled as a member of the group, encouraging everyone by every now and then said, "We can do this, not for now, keep it up." Teamwork is also illustrated in wanting harmony within the group, by asking each other whether they are still okay and offering water to those who were tired. Modesty and humility are character strengths of temperance. Nature's features and beauty always have the potential to make us feel small and humble. For example, participants said, "We saw the giraffes and a few antelope today, but it is all about the scenery and the total peacefulness and magnitude. We have climbed the moon rock and just sat there looking. The view, it is something humbling. The grandeur was immense. Creation made me feel very insignificant." The participants felt a heightened sense of humility, recognizing the greatness of nature around them and being humble about their own importance in the bigger picture. By merely enjoying the vastness of the area, the participants experience modesty in comparison with nature. In Ugrabis Falls, all the viewpoints, the trails, and actually the entire park provide opportunities for the virtue of temperance, and so do all our national parks and nature in general. In all parks, numerous quotes and quotations were evident of appreciation of beauty and excellence of what nature offers, one of the character strengths of transcendence. And gratitude links with appreciation of beauty quotes and attests to participants being aware and thankful for what they see and experience in the parks, and that they do not take these experiences for granted. For example, it's an awesome view, a huge privilege to be here, grateful to be able to see this, all about peaceful and secure feeling. And it was immense, and I am part of it, a privilege, and I feel close to my Creator. The spiritual connection with nature can seldom be verbalized and is often reflected in actions such as those expressed in these quotes. Spirituality is one of the most important character strengths found in nature, as it is in nature that a strong belief about meaning of life might be. National parks offers places of tranquility and peace, to take time to sit and do nothing, to focus on oneself, inner peace and calm, and our place in creation. From these quotes, it can surely be said that virtues and character strengths can be regarded as intangible benefits and are either elicited or enforced from a visit to our parks. Because of the fact that an individual's happiness level is determined by activities and practices we choose to engage in, we can probably assume that visits to parks and their special places and participating in activities offered will play a role in increased happiness of visitors. Many of these activities and places are regarded as unique experiences. And although all our parks are unique with regards to landscape, species, and experiences, each park still has its own prime unique features. And these features and places are often singled out by people as a highlight of their visit and often described as exceptionally meaningful. And some of these unique experiences are following slides. So the unique feature of Agulhas is the psychological knowing of standing with one foot on the Atlantic and the other foot on the Indian Ocean side. Visitors describe this as a unique experience that will be a lasting memory of their visit. And one said, it's such a special feeling. I can't explain it, but I will remember. This is a typical picture taken by visitors to Agulhas National Park. As expected, all visitors mentioned the falls as the main physical drawcard to Agulhas. Spending time at the falls and walking along the abyss on the boardwalk are mentioned as memorable experiences. However, most participants also mentioned the scenic viewpoints as highlights of the visit and places to contemplate. These features can be further promoted as places of finding peace and quiet, serenity, and places of contemplation. Participants describe these places as something spiritually uplifting. Participants in Agulhas were also eager to show photographs taken of the moon and the illuminated falls at night, which they regard as very special and unique opportunity. Although the unique feature of this park is the bontebok, unexpectedly, only a few participants mentioned these animals as the main physical drawcard to the park. Most participants mentioned the good birding opportunities, vegetation, and activities associated with the river and the river itself as highlights of the visit. The unique feature of Canterbury is of isolation with its awe-inspiring views. And as expected, all visitors mentioned this as the main physical drawcard to the park. Spending time at the viewpoints along the trail is mentioned as memorable experience. But in addition, some plants, such as the mountain aloe, were specifically mentioned as sightings to remember. Golden Gate's virtual attributes identified as making this park unique includes the cultural history, the geological, geomorphological, and paleontological history, the scenic beauty, also the snow in winter, and its wilderness or aesthetic opportunities, and the freedom to walk amongst the sandstone cliffs and outcrops. Participants described these places and experience as something mind-bogglingly beautiful, and a participant provided this photograph and explained her experience at this point on the tourist route as it connects me to my spirituality. My senses and my emotions get tuned. This represents feelings discovered at a number of such unnoticed locations in the park. One of the features mentioned by a number of participants was the cloud formations, often visible over and from the park, and these were referred to as something extraordinary, which we don't often see in the city. Although the entire Mapungubwe is unique with regards to landscape, the Mapungubwe Hill and its history can be seen as the park's prime drawcard according to participants. Visitors mentioned the walk to the hilltop, and views from the top as particularly meaningful during their visit. However, the presence of elephants and the baobab trees and the variety of bird life were mentioned by almost all participants as highlights of a visit. In addition, the remoteness, the peacefulness, the silence, and the relatively of this park are also regarded as unique experiences. The treetop boardwalk and quiet viewpoints along the Confluence Walkway were specifically singled out as places of unique experiences. Apart from the overall beauty of the Marokele landscape, the Lenong viewpoint was specifically as a unique place where visitors are in awe of the untouched and remote characteristics of the environment. And a participant also mentioned that a quick sighting of the waterbuck copper butterfly was a great bonus. Apart from viewing the magnificent animals of Mokala, visitors to this park were in particular aware of the camel thorn trees, which they singled out as a special feature of the landscapes of the park. Verbal accounts include the very special feature of the amazing colors of the landscape, which will be remembered forever. Now, all of these show that visitors are not only aware of the main attractions of each park, but that they also become aware of the additional unexpected sightings and experiences during their visit. And such places of solitude, peacefulness, and contemplation are found in abundance, but many opportunities can be explored during, for example, guided activities, where guides and maybe signs can encourage visitors to become aware and mindful of sounds, silences, colors, and even night skies of our parks and the values of nature in general. So what are the values of nature? And while I'm having a sip of water, please read through these quotes made by well-known wilderness philosophers. So the writings of these wilderness philosophers, Thoreau, Muir, Leopold, Olson, and our own South African wilderness expert, Dr. Ian, were used to identify 8 fundamental value clusters of a nature experience, all experienced in our national parks. I will try and just briefly explain each of the examples provided by participants' quotes and experiences. The first one is solitude. This includes experiences or feelings expressed as peaceful, I feel like the only person here, being alone in the bush, total silence, and privacy. Natural environments are unique in the ability to provide solitude and privacy, no matter how we use them. And the very idea that one can just get away when needed provides a time out. Oneness, part of, close to nature, immersed in nature, feeling connected, at home, are expressions used to explain oneness. The basic theme of oneness indicates that the nature experience allows a unique opportunity to re-establish a close relationship with nature. For example, froth of waves blows against your legs and you can taste the saltiness of the breeze. You become part of it all. Feel everything as part of yourself. You become one with all the different parts and everything fitted into one whole. Nature also allows visitors the opportunity to escape the constraints and pressures of the outside world and express feelings such as pioneering feelings, comfortable with basics. It's like the first people who lived here, connected to times long ago, and wilderness and remoteness are included under the value of primitiveness. A quote from a participant in Golden Gate explains this value. The rock formations are so extraordinary. It is a mystical place. I can imagine how the first people who lived here experienced those unbelievable spiritual feelings. More examples of primitiveness are quotes from visitors to Mapungubwe. You feel you are really just Africa here. Feeling remote with a little of civilization is good. There is an atmosphere created by the combination of elements. There is a feeling of wildness and remoteness. When people are in nature, it seems that time of day is of very little importance. Feelings expressed as forgot about time and lost track of time, and time flies here are included in timelessness. Time spent in a park provides the opportunity to forget about daily routine life and get tuned in to an unstructured pace in nature. Study participants' feelings of humility include a wide spectrum of expressions. For example, awe, I feel small, unimportant, and humbled, as discussed under virtues. In Ugrobis, a participant said, "The total purity of nature was extremely beautiful. It seemed so untouched. The magnitude of the left me feeling small and humble." Authors Borri and Roggenbach said, "Nature levels us out, reminding us perhaps of our correct place within the natural world and provoking an intellectual humility." Care, which is also a virtue, is explained in this quote. "The moment I saw this tree, I had to touch it. I put my fingers into the deep grooves in the bark. I realized I want to be part of nature around me. I want to take care of it. I appreciate it allowing me to hear and feel it." An ethic of care reflects perhaps one of the greatest impacts any nature experience could provide. Behave properly, inspired to care, and appreciation for the small are overwhelming feelings mentioned by participants in all parks, expressing the value of care. Immersed in a nature experience with fewer external distractions than in our everyday life, we have the opportunity to observe the natural environment and our place in it. Quotes include, "Nature creates a place where I can find calmness and rest within myself. Here I can find myself. Nature motivates me in life. Time spent here gives me the passion in life to achieve and do well." When one looks at small things, the curve of Fernley, a spider's web, no one can copy that. Those are the things that one can observe and just look at and admire and feel the greatness of the Creator. Expressions such as these and my place in creation, closeness with others, close to the Creator, and close to other life forms form part of spirituality. The term spiritual in its original sense refers to breath as the breath of life. Now, although many study participants express the connection between nature and God, spirituality as a value of nature experiences involves ecological values and attitudes and not necessarily only a religion. Spirituality in this sense is about how our life affects other human beings and other beings in nature. Although individuals may experience a profound closeness to the Creator while they are in nature, many feel close to nature without religious connection. With some final thoughts to summarize. The motivations participants provided for visiting the respective national parks vary over a relatively wide spectrum depending on the park's unique features. However, initially everyone provided reasons for visiting the parks that correspond with their physical or cognitive experience in nature. It seemed that participants visit the parks for the obvious reasons, such as viewing the waterfall, bird watching in Mapungubwe, cave viewing in Mokala, walks in Golden Gate, or merely relaxation in all of the parks. Although multiple reasons and motivations exist, there was a particularly high interest in experiencing peace and quietness, experiences of solitude and admiring the landscapes and scenic spots. The parks have a certain wilderness feeling that enhance participants' experience, in particular at viewpoints, at scenic spots, on the self-drive routes and trails. Attributes that contributed to the wilderness feeling included the natural values, emotional and spiritual, and a general positive feeling about the park as a whole. The opportunity to experience a relatively unspoiled nature can therefore be seen as a primary reason for visiting the parks and the specific identified places in the parks. Participants particularly enjoyed being away from the sights and sounds that they associated with civilization and city life, and it was good to see that there were no music allowed signs. Also the uncrowdedness of the respective parks. Although participants had specific initial feel-good motivations for visiting the parks, the longer they stayed or the more they visited the place, the more they realized that apart from the physical, consciously known aspects, there was another dimension that motivated them. To realize the existence and the meaning of this dimension, one should become aware or mindful of the natural environment and its components. We become aware of the environment through what we hear, smell, and touch, but also through physical experiences, such as interactions with wildlife and challenging activities. For example, the walk up to the Mapuku Hill, the Dusty Trail in Province, or even the drive to the Lenong viewpoint in Marrakech. Both sensory and physical engagement lead to the dimension of emotional awareness. People initially use their senses to become aware of their surroundings. They say, look at that dusty, or look at that nice bird. And this awareness can also be established through a physical awareness. It is hot and I'm tired, for example, walking up the Mapuku Hill. We can verbalize these experiences and share them with each other. However, awareness also involves a deeper dimension of emotions, which is harder to verbalize. What is experienced physically evokes some deeper meaning that takes one to the affective level, whereas life's virtues and character strengths are experienced. Awareness at all levels returns a person to the essentials of a happy life. The landscapes and nature experiences elicited specific elements of happiness, psychological states, emotional responses, and positive feelings in participants. And these feelings are ways of experiencing the environment and contribute to a deep and lasting happiness effect on the individual. It seems that participants value these experiences, particularly in unspoiled, quiet places, where they can experience the value of solitude, such as at the viewpoints and scenic spots in Ugrobis, the treetop walk and confluence in Mapungubwe, a viewpoint in Marrakech, or the psychological meeting point at the oceans in Agallas, or the top of Brandbach Golden Gate and the vistas in Kamdebu, for example. Therefore, the setting itself contributes to how the nature experience is valued. However, the entire park, in all cases in this study, seems to be a place where virtues are discovered or enhanced. Although stress reduction and relaxation were identified as products of a visit to the park, or to all the parks, a more spiritual process of awareness and fulfillment also developed within individuals. These experiences become intrinsically valuable to the individual through their involvement in nature, for example, with encounters with an animal, or listening to nature sounds, seeing different colors, or just by spending time in nature, contributing to wisdom, courage, improved relationships, open-mindedness, temperance, and transcendence. Therefore, this deeper value or meaning of nature experiences in pristine places enables us to realize our own qualities or character strengths and virtues in life. Because of the fact that virtues and happiness are closely associated, and that virtue leads to happiness and happiness leads to virtue, it is safe to say that the experiences visitors have in our parks contribute to living a happy and general increased well-being. So what can sandparks or the honorary rangers or everybody do? Create quiet places, create quiet spaces for the visitor, physically and intrinsically. In my study, no specific indicators or signs could be found in any park where the visitor is sort of reminded to become aware. Our findings in this study clearly indicate the need for such reminders. Exploring and creating places and opportunities in the park where visitors can be made aware, reminded, or shown to stop, to look and listen, to discover your own quiet space, to become mindful of the specific environment or place, and gradually begin to realize the additional, these unmeasurable, intangible benefits of the experiences. Management will be able to contribute not only to a new or additional image for the park, but also enhance a general of well-being in visitors' lives. Therefore, it is recommended that management implements signs or indicators or some markers just to invite visitors to explore these intangible benefits mentioned. For example, just add an unobtrusive sign somewhere to breathe, to stretch, to take a break, to look and listen. Randomly, add a small sign. Bend down and smell the flowers. These should not be intrusive or new signs, or it must be new signs, but it should not intrude on the experience. The signs are already there. Why not just add a little reminder? Close your eyes to feel, to experience. We are quite used to this sign nowadays, which is probably necessary. But why not just add a little sign next to it? Just to remind someone to look, to listen, to relax, to enjoy. And then our tourist guides, of which I am one, make use of guides. Most of them are well trained, but they must also know that they should create opportunities that will expose visitors to possibilities for these unexpected or unique opportunities. Visitors should be involved in the experience. Guides should try not to only give out all the statistics about animals like the age and the gestation period and the length of horns, things people can Google. They should rather tell a story about the animal or feature, including the environment. Why is it there? What is the function? And why unspoiled nature is important. And maybe just keep quiet sometimes, giving the visitor a chance to just watch and experience. Research proposes that national parks may provide visitors with opportunities to break free from daily routine life, to experience something different, convincing them to return, which brings a gradual deepening of experience with each visit. There are certain pathways, the physical nature experience and the sensory awareness that mindful of features will deepen into something more spiritual or transcendent that touches deep emotions. Such experiences may result from the strong affective and spiritual dimension from a personal nature experience. This may have a transformative effect on the individual's values. Deeper connections may consequently change their ethics about themselves by gained or enhanced virtues and their interaction with nature. This again may stimulate the need to return to a park, to have these experiences again and again and again. But even more importantly, stimulates conservation-minded and ecologically intelligent behavior, or that pro-environmental behavior. Therefore, visits to a park have the potential to transform the way individuals see themselves as part of the natural environment. These transformations may contain profound experiences. A person visiting a park has time to reflect on life, to discover meaning, virtues, and the self. Hence, visiting a park has the potential to fundamentally transform individuals from feeling to functioning well. In other words, improved well-being. Please allow me just to say thank you to a few people. In the first place, I would like to thank SANParks and specifically Dr. Leandi Slobbert and Kevin Moore for the opportunity to conduct this research. What started out as a basic study exploded into much more than what was anticipated. And the genuine support by these two individuals contributed greatly to the completion of these initial research findings. I would also like to express my gratitude towards the park management and staff for their kind reception of the research team and assistance we needed in all the parks that I've visited so far and hopefully will visit in future. My sincere goes to my HOD of the Department of Nature Conservation, TUT, Prof. Brian Riley, who allowed me the time in between all my other duties to conduct this research, and also my assistants who helped with data gathering and analysis, especially with the co-coding of the enormous amount of data transcribed of the park visits. And finally, I wish to thank, maybe they all include this group, I wish to thank all the study participants who were willing to give me some of their precious time in nature to share experiences, to willingly share these stories with a stranger on a mountain pass, near a steep cliff, or at a lookout point over vast landscapes reflects the meaning that these findings hold. I thank you.
Thank you, Nelly. That was very, very interesting. And I think I speak for majority of people to saying that, yes, that's exactly how we feel. And I've actually learned something today. Thank you very much. Now I see we've got a few questions, so I will actually read them out to you. I'm going to start with the first one, comes from John Buerta. Thanks for an enlightening presentation. Do you have any thoughts about the probable presence of feel-good hormones such as serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins that promote positive feelings like pleasure and happiness? So your thoughts on those feel-good hormones?
Well, I think the feel-good hormones are, if you are in nature and you are a nature lover, I think it's self-explanatory that you feel good because you are there, and that obviously that is those hormones that plays a part. But I'm definitely not trained in physiology, so it's if you do something and you feel good, those hormones are definitely active.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question comes from Marty Jasper. He said, thanks, Nelly, for your interesting talk. Watching the picture really refreshed the yearning to be in the bush or wilderness. I agree with so much of what you've said. However, the real challenge, I think, is that the appreciation for the bush and the healing of the soul and the filling of the spirit are the higher level needs on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The challenge is that too many of our population can't appreciate these higher level needs of self-actualization and self-esteem when they do not have the lower, more basic physiological needs and safety and security, etc., met on a daily experience. Do you think that experiences in nature can transcend these lower level needs? All people, regardless of their life situation, can learn to appreciate nature in some way? Question. Then national parks' future and value will only be realized when all of the nation can appreciate them as their own and feel a sense of ownership of them in their current state and don't see their value in another land use. What are your comments on that?
Well, that's a long one, and if I can remember some of it.
Okay, I can repeat the first one. So do you think that experiences in nature can transcend these lower level needs? I think he's talking about the lower levels on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, I do think so. I work with people from all levels in society. So if you are exposed to nature and you have someone to guide you, to make you aware, it is possible that you see nature not only as but of something much more worthwhile and something that you can actually, without using it physically, you can use it mentally and spiritually to feel better. But you have to be exposed to that in the right way. If you have never been in nature beyond seeing it as a commodity, then it will be difficult. It is like, it's not a training, but you don't know of anything else. How will you gather a new perspective?
Okay, thank you. No, I think that's fine. They also say...
sorry, Gabby.
Yes.
Sorry, could Nelly please turn her camera on?
Thank you, Nelly.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, so the other part of the question was national parks' future and value will only be realized when all people can appreciate them as their own and feel a sense of ownership. of them in their current state, and they don't see their value in another land use. What are your comments on that?
I'm not sure that I understand the question. I missed out on the first part.
Okay, I'll repeat it. So national parks' future and value will only be realized when all of the people of South Africa can appreciate them as their own and feel a sense of ownership of them in their current state, and they don't see the value in another land use. So essentially what he's saying is, what are your comments on the future of national parks? If people get to see it, will they basically then, once they have a sense of ownership, will they then, yeah.
I do believe if people can go to parks, see what they offer, be included, I definitely believe there's a huge future for our parks. Specifically, if they expand a little, and not only for the physical part of nature or of a park, but also bring in the spiritual part, this emotional part. Nature is an emotional issue. Dr. Ian Player was very specific in that you cannot take out of nature. So just bring in that feeling part in our conservation, not only the stats, not only protect the habitat, but what about the people? If we don't get people to feel and become part of nature, why do we conserve? Try to conserve, but we still try to exclude people. So that is just my personal feeling, that we have to include people, not only physically, but spiritually, emotionally, get them there, teach them, learn them, show them, without giving too much information. Don't scare them off, don't scare them away, but bring them in, involve them so that they can realize the intrinsic value of nature. And there are programs and ways to do that.
Thank you. Okay, our second last, one of the last questions, there's two more, I think. It's from Sorry Human. Did the participants include young families with children? And if so, how did their responses compare with the findings, such as solitude and the silence, which is usually not associated with small children?
Okay. Yeah, my study participants were only adults, above 18 years, and most of the people were older than 25. No children are involved in any of the research now, but as far as I can remember, there were only very few who had kids, and the discussion, the presentation involves the majority. There might be a few, there are people who have not always the experiences that I've explained here, but these were the majority. And remember, this presentation focused on the positives, on the positive and the well-being part. So yeah, the children were not included in this research.
Thank you, Nelly. Then a question from Stephen Floyd. He says, fantastic. However, some conservationists lobby to keep people out of precious areas. How do we expand the win-win of responsible and valuable visitation? And how does the research apply to day visit parks like Table Mountain?
I still have to go to Table Mountain and to give you a proper answer on that one. I think people be limited to specific areas, not entirely excluded from areas, but limited. And because people in this study that I've done, and I've interviewed and did a lot of data gathering with a lot of people, they all appreciate solitude. They all appreciate quietness and uncrowded. So yes, I know getting people to parks, getting people into Kruger and all these small parks like Mountain Zebra, we need people to get the money, but at least keep some areas and some places unique, to have those unique experiences where it's uncrowded. Limit the people, but do not exclude them necessarily. That's my personal feeling.
Thanks, Nelly. Following on from that question is another question about Table Mountain, and I know you mentioned that you haven't been there yet, but Stephen says, in Table Mountain National Park, 25% of annual park deaths, typically 5 per annum, are suicides. Sad people in our park. How do we mitigate this?
Can I get back on email? Can that person send me that question on email so I can have a long discussion on that?
Okay, perfect.
It's
Stephen,
if you're still on, mitigate that.
Perfect. If you're still on, Stephen, please send an email to Nelly and then she will answer you directly. Then I think I've got two more. There's some more questions coming up. Christine Duplessis asked if a presentation will be available afterwards. Yes, it will. It will be on the Sandparks YouTube page in the next following few days. Andre Gildenhuys said, I believe the Kalahari Transfrontier Park healed me from the psychological effects of the COVID pandemic. In line with the first two questions, how else can we make people realize this healing, which photos and words cannot describe?
Sorry, can you just repeat that question again?
Okay. This is how else can we make people realize the healing aspects of the parks, which photos and words can't describe?
People must get into nature. They must get there and spend time in nature or in a park. They have to experience things before anything can take place. By looking at a video, watching television programs, it will maybe some curiosity, but you have to get into a place, whether it's Kalahari or Kruger or Bontebok, you have to get there to experience. You have to have that physical experience. If you do not get into nature, you cannot be any of these healing properties.
Okay, thank you. There's two more questions and then we're done. This is from Taria Unwin. Hello, Nelly. Some camps and areas are becoming too expensive for local tourists, whilst it's still very affordable for overseas visitors. Has any of your participants expressed a view or concern about this? So the price?
Yes, they have. But as I said, this presentation was only about the good things.
Thank you. Okay. Then Siwa Tabete said, thank you, Nelly. However, I always wonder, what can we do better in our parks to attract visitors in a world of technology, which even during trail walks, they're carrying their cell phones? Would it not be advisable to have apps that we can use for identification and awareness as we move forward?
Yeah, I'm not too keen on apps and carrying a cell phone when you are in nature. I know people cannot go without these things. I also, what I would like to see was this awareness, making people aware, putting up signs or indicators, or where they should just stop, like my last few slides. No information is needed there. It is just to make someone aware of what is going on around me. Just stop and be silent. If I want more information, I can go back at the campsite or wherever, and then I can get the information from my cell phone or on an app. But yeah, there are ways, and there are many apps that you can use, but to become aware, I don't think technology is good, but in some cases, just leave it and just focus on what nature provides at that specific moment. That is part of mindfulness, is to become aware of what is going on around you at that specific moment, not being distracted with anything else.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think that is the end of our questions. I'll hand over to Peter. And thank you, Nelly, again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly. That was a wonderful talk. I think it resonated with all of us, and I'm sure that most of the people watching were found it very interesting. Certainly having come back from Golden Gate this morning and looking at those mountains, and the comment that somebody made about the clouds over the mountains, they're 100% correct. It was wonderful just to sit and watch the sun going down behind the mountains. Just a quick personal note on what you're saying about keeping quiet. Years ago, I was lucky enough to go to Antarctica, and one of the things they made us do, they took us ashore. They moved us all about 30 meters apart from one another, and we sat for 15 minutes. Nobody said a word. Nobody said anything. It was amazing. After about 10 minutes, you could hear your own heartbeat. It was really amazing to just sit there. There was no sound, nothing. It was wonderful. So thank you very much for your talk. I think that it was really, really interesting. Look forward to some of your research on other parks when you get to them. You've been to all the small parks, which are really wonderful. And I think a lot of people sort of, when you talk parks, they think of Kruger, but they're missing out on not going to all those small parks that you talked about. So from all of us, thank you very much. And thanks to all the SANParks people involved in putting this together for us. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Nelly, thank you. And everybody have a wonderful holiday season. Drive carefully, be safe, and avoid that little bug that's chasing us all. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.